Concerned what it hit for, cause I've still come to raise hell like Mephisto. Please don't front, cause I'll karate chop your lymph node. Noodle arm punk, you punch and end up with your wrist broke.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. So this is a very interesting subject. Bruce Pritchard made a comment that I don't listen to his podcast that much anymore. But there was a quote from his podcast about whether your top stars, your mega stars, should be relatable. And Bruce doesn't think so. Of course, in this quote, he basically suggests that Jim Ross believes that they should be. So in this video, we're going to talk about this. And then I'm going to basically try to wrap it around in some other pop culture things and let's see what I can shake out of this. And let's see what you guys think. So this is what Bruce said. Jim Ross was pushing that in order to have a champion people would believe in, you had to give them real things to believe in. You had to tell their story, but not one time would sit there and fucking take Hulk Hogan. Now tell me, Terry, when you were in a band, you played bass, right? The fuck would I bring that up and why? Why do you want to? This is Diesel. Was a character. Kevin Nash was a person. The audience was in love with the character. They didn't know the person. You keep the person mysterious and mystique. When he becomes just like your buddy that went to college in East Tennessee and played a year on the team, what's special about him anymore? I can relate to him. You don't want people to relate to your top megastars. So, all right. So there's 100 examples of a relatable top star, right? There's just so many. And I know people are going to be like, but what about Stone Cold? You know, it's like, yes, you have Stone Cold Steve Austin. You also have Dusty Rhodes. You have so many guys. There's just a lot of them, okay? A lot. But then you have the super mega star. And to some degree, a guy like Bruno Sammartino. We didn't know that much about Bruno, but we knew enough for him to have mystique, but also for him to be huge, because part of who he was is why he was so popular. You know, Bruno Sammartino is a giant hulking Italian in a population that loves Italians, and a mostly Catholic, you know, Irish and Italian population. They loved him. Same thing with Pedro Morales. You know, that Northeast area has a lot of Puerto Ricans, you know, a lot of the Hispanics. Pedro Morales was a superhero. Sure, that makes sense. It's the same thing down south where you have like Bullet Bob Armstrong and those kind of guys who I call them folk heroes. You know, Jerry the King Lawler. You know Jerry the King Lawler is from Memphis. You know, you're from Memphis. He's from Memphis. He could have been your neighbor. So yeah, you kind of see him as being a big deal because he's from your neighborhood. But then you have these guys you don't know that much about, you know, the Hulk Hogans, where we never really understood what Hulk Hogan, like who he was. We just knew Hulk Hogan stood for everything that we liked. He was the embodiment of everything that we liked. He likes rock music. We like rock music. He likes America. We like America. He's a Christian. We're Christians. You know, it was whatever America was feeling, you know, Hulk Hogan just reflected that, you know, and that worked, and it got him over essentially everywhere, you know, but of course his wrestling style didn't always get over, but the personality was able to get over everywhere. And then you have other people who, like The Rock. The Rock is another one. Like, The Rock didn't get over because we knew he played football for the University of Miami. It's kind of like, I was 14. What does that do for me? But when you see the visual of The Rock, you know, tall, charismatic, you know, could talk his ass off, you know, could put on entertaining matches even if he wasn't the greatest mechanic in the world. You can see that character and you can want to be like him. You know, you imitate The Rock. You say what The Rock says. You raise the eyebrow like The Rock. Just like, you know, Hulk Hogan. It was like, what you gonna do? You know? It's the Superman syndrome. You know, we like Superman because we can never be Superman. You know, Superman has, of course, has his two identities. He has a Clark Kent, and he has Superman, but he's still Superman even as Clark Kent, right? That means it's not like, well, we can shoot Clark Kent, but we can't shoot Superman. It's like, no, you can't shoot either one of them. But Clark Kent is, it's basically like him letting his hair down. It's him relaxing, not needing to be the gigantic inspiration that he kind of is all the time. He can let his hair down. But nobody's going to become a fan of Superman via Clark Kent, Now, Spider-Man is the opposite. Now, sometimes people may like Peter Parker and not really care for Spider-Man, But you can have relatable heroes, and that will work. And there are certain times when that works. I think Daniel Bryan is one of those times where it worked. But Batista is one of those times where I did not care about Batista's background. I don't give a shit. John Cena, don't care about his background. I don't think anybody ever cared about John Cena's background, where he played football or where he's a power lifter or any of that stuff. Nobody cared, And it seems to me, from just looking at the levels of success, you can be a consistent top guy in a territory, and you have to be relatable. Dr. Dusty Williams, for instance, when he brought him into Mid-South Wrestling, Bill Watts is not an idiot. He knows that this guy plays football and he wrestles for the University of Oklahoma. That's in his territory. So, of course, he's going to push that concept, that he's going to constantly push that he played football at Oklahoma, because that's in his territory. Once you take Dr. Dev Steve Williams and that he was a Oklahoma wrestler and move him to California, it's like, who the fuck cares? I don't care about him wrestling in Oklahoma. I'm from California. I don't care. It's that same mentality where there are human universals. I talk about this stuff a lot, that you kind of want to tap into. That's why the Hulk Hogan thing worked, is that you have Hogan did not, have things that he had to be from somewhere. He wasn't like the Ultimate Warrior where he was from parts unknown. He had to be from somewhere. So they said Venice Beach, California. But, there was not that much of Venice Beach, California in Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was basically a national star, and he was made to be a national star. They didn't want him to be regionalized, even though he had pretty much made his bones in like the upper Midwest and like Minneapolis and that kind of stuff. They didn't want him to be a regional star. They wanted him to be a national star, And when they want you to be a national star, you have to have a different presentation than if they want you to be a regional star. If they want you to be a regional star, they will talk effusively about the things that connect you to that region. That is what makes you a folk hero. The Von Erichs were folk heroes. Everybody knew Fritz owned the territory. These were his sons. They were over just because they were his sons, and then they were actually good, so they was able to get over even more. And that became the whole thing with world class. You build your folk heroes because, they represent Texas. And all of the Von Erichs, their storylines, it would be like, well, my favorite one is obviously the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. And a lot of that was Texas versus Georgia. Texas values, our Christian values, family values. And Georgia was like, boo. It's like trash, it's garbage. It was a lot of, that's pretty much what it was. It was, the boys from Texas embody Texas. Now, what does that mean in Iowa? I don't know. What does that mean in New York? I don't know. People will still like their talent, but it's not going to be the same, because you're going to be like, okay, well, you can go into that territory and, it's very different. And so that's one of the things I kind of agree with Bruce on this, because I can see, but you also have guys who are, like I said, very relatable, but still were able to go from territory to territory. That would be like your Dusty Rhodes, There was nothing about, Dusty that you absolutely have to see him in Florida or in Charlotte or even in Madison Square Garden, You know, Dusty could go pretty much anywhere because he had a human universal, being the son of a plumber, the American dream, baby. He tells that story. That's the human universal. That story can go anywhere. You know, so he had the ability to be a national star. Very few people have that. Some people just kind of be like, you know, they hang out in their territory and they become big stars in their territory. So you have, and this all shakes out when you look at it, as Bruce Pritchard is trying to build a national megastar in Diesel. That's what he wants to do. Failed miserably, but this is what he wants to do. While Jim Ross is, because he comes from that Bill Watts school of territory wrestling, that's what he's thinking. He's thinking, oh, we should just talk about his football career. We should tell people about his life and different things like that. And it's like, yeah, getting to know you, that's fine. And it works sometimes, but a lot of times people are just kind of going to shrug. If it aids the character, then sure. I'll give you a good example. The Bianca Belair stuff, right? All of the stuff about her playing track or running track and, you know, being, you know, a lifter and all that kind of stuff, all that shit is irrelevant. But it adds into her character, right? So they was able to sweep all that in, all her real life backstory into her character. And that's the same thing they used to do with Dr. Death Steve Williams. They swept all his backstory into his wrestling character. But the difference is they're trying to make it bigger. Because she can't just be a star in Tennessee where she's from. She has to be a national star. So you have to add some human universals to it. And it's the same thing with, you know, racial or gender-based minority superstars or whatever. You can bring that stuff in, but obviously once you start doing that stuff a lot, you're going to alienate certain audiences. Even if you're not trying to, you know? Yeah, Bret Hart would, like, you end up in a situation where, you know, like the Bret Hart story where he's a superhero in Canada because he's standing up for Canadian values. And Americans who have different values are like, boo, fuck Bret Hart. It's a same situation, you know? But it's just something to think about. And I think this is a very interesting conversation to have. Because I think we see often that people will leave or they will become big stars somewhere because they have like hella roots in that area. But they have a difficult time getting beyond that. You know, the British Bulldog was a huge star in Europe because he was European, you know, and he was the hometown boy. He'd go over to, and that included places where he didn't live, like Germany, you know? So that kind of thing, it makes sense, you know? But it's very difficult to have a British national American hero. It's going to be very hard. As we see with like Drew McIntyre, right? He is Scottish and he's like trying to be the top guy of the United States. And he's talking about Churchill and William Wallace, and Americans are like, bro, you better put some George Washington in that bitch. You know, you better do something, bro. It ain't working. Nah. But you know, you can have that, but you have to, they need it to bring up some human universals in order to make that thing work. Roman Reigns has human universals. It's not that he played football. That's why everybody likes him. You know, nobody cares that he played football. He's wrestling now. But a lot of people can see, you know, themselves as the Roman Reigns character, or they look up to it, or they fear it, or they in some way engage with that. Now, more than before, when he just seems to be kind of a blank slate big dog, you know? But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to via Subscribe Star or via Cash App. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.
On aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session, but you got an affection for no progression, regression. The best don't